today we went ahead and went through all those introductions because introductions are important for, and us all getting to know each other as a group of independent consultants is super important because of this topic. Basically, today we're going to talk about, you can keep your cameras on because I'm going to make all of you work a little bit too today. I don't, those of you that want to be on camera, not everybody does. Independent consultant doesn't mean we're 100% independent. And I think that's, that's the good thing about this and about this group is that it gives us other people. We're not here by ourselves. Starting with, basically, support is really important to us and it's really necessary. But many of us worked in places before we became independent consultants. And of course, a big part of that workplace is we hang out with our colleagues and do stuff with them and lunch with them. And then all of a sudden, many of us have found ourselves at home by ourselves, right? Like, okay, here's me all day and it's just me all day. And who has, conversations with their pets now that they didn't used to have, right? All of a sudden, yeah, see, we all started like, hey, how are you today? Do you think it's time for lunch yet? And they're like, yeah, always time for food. Let's talk about what are some kinds of support. Everybody can unmute and just tell us what are some kinds of support that you think you need sometimes.
I think sometimes it's just good to be able to bounce ideas off of other people, whether it's, tactical and practical evaluation or or just business mechanics. Yeah, it can be a little tough doing that on your own sometimes.
Yeah. That's one thing we get in our workplaces when we did work is when we had something we were wrestling with or wanted ideas for, we could talk with colleagues because that helps. What are some other kinds of support? What about when you've got a bad client?
Yeah, I was going to say the day-to-day, those things that pop up, surprise things that pop up during the day that you kind of, like you said, Susan, you can usually bounce it off of someone and there's no one to bounce it off of, right? So.
Yep. Yeah, especially when we're talking about maybe some disagreement with a client or something your client wants and you're like, is that reasonable or am I being, some other kinds of support?
I think expanding each other's network. So it's like, oh, I know that Matt does education related evaluation. I know this person does. Maybe we should both talk. And just kind of helping each other meet new people and expand our network.
Yeah. Yeah. So having support, I know my business bestie, Ann, is not here today, unfortunately, but her and I go back and forth all the time with like, oh, I just did this theory of change. Look at it. Tell me what you think. And, we critique each other's reports and visuals and different things for each other too. Like you say, just bouncing things off, but also I had a huge proposal. So I sent that to a colleague last week and had her do final edits on it to make sure, she hadn't read it. It was a cold read. And so even that sometimes, and of course, yes, I paid her for her time. I didn't just ask her in this case because it was like last minute, oh my God, can you read this today and have it done tomorrow? And yes. Yeah. So, sometimes we compensate our colleagues if we ask for something that's above and beyond. So let's talk about some of our sources of support. So who's relied on their peers? Raise your hands or whatever. How many of us rely on support from our peers? All the time. Yeah, and that's again where getting to know each other through this group can be super important because it helps us learn who our peers are and what they do and who we might want to eventually work with or something. How do you find peer support? What are some ways some of you have found peers?
I used to work for evaluation. Oh, I used to work for an evaluation firm, and a lot of us have moved on and now work independently. And so it's a nice network of peers to work with. And so I've actually set up like a bi-weekly business chat with one of my former colleagues. I guess I should call her current colleague now.
Oh, that's a good
So we
idea.
kind of take turns, like half an hour you, half an hour me, to brainstorm, bounce ideas off of each other. Or if someone has something pressing, they take the whole hour, and then we reserve
Mhm.
the next session for the other person. And then if
Okay.
we need more, I'm hiring her now to do some work because it's above and beyond.
I've found a lot of support in the mastermind groups that have been set up through AEA.
I
Yeah.
just fangirled and chased people down at Summer Institute. And Susan knows because she's one of them.
Yeah.
Somebody asked what are mastermind groups. They're set up through the TIG. Yearly, twice a year?
Yeah, I think it's
and
once a year now. Yeah.
Yeah, and just groups of people coming together at similar positions in their building their consulting business. And it's all self-run of how often you want to meet, what do you want to talk about. And I've been through it, I think 2 iterations, and it's been really helpful. Susan is in my group.
Yep. And we have emails in between when somebody just has something come up where, hey, what do you do about this? Or it's nice. It's introduced us. We probably may not have ever met otherwise. And it's been fun. So what kind of support? We just talked about that, how our peers can provide us with different kinds of support.
I was
AEA.
going to chime in, Susan, that
ahead.
society, from the societies, when I go to
Mhm.
conferences, and also when I make research collaborations or partnerships.
Yep, that's a great way to meet people and get your support, is the different conferences that other independent consultants might go to. AEA offers a lot too. First up, of course, mastermind groups. And those, if you see that come out on the number one, if you're in the independent consulting TIG, make sure you go in and sign up for the conversation listserv or whatever, because that's where they'll send out notifications saying, hey, we're starting our mastermind groups again. Watch for that if you want to get into a mastermind group. The TIGs, different TIGs, you might go to different, like I'm a member of the community psychology TIG, and I've met a lot of other people through there to work with, and a lot of community psychologists. So if you're in education, you might want to get active, but it's not only a matter with the TIGs of going to them or joining them. Find out how you can become like part of, like when Ann and I co-led the nonprofit and foundations TIG, we started a leadership council. We did the same thing with community psych TIG. So you can get involved in the leadership of the TIG, even just, being a council member. You can do the newsletter. One thing I highly recommend is becoming program co-chair, because then you get to like oversee the programming for the AEA conference. To me, that was like the most fun role I had in any TIG. Done it a couple times, and it's just fun. Go to the conference if you are able. Now, I know a lot of people have had health concerns about attending conferences. So if that's understandable. If you're like, I'm not ready to do that, or I've got vulnerable people at home, can certainly understand why people may not be ready to attend conferences right now. But if you're able and want to, going to the AEA conference, I know this year is going to be crazy because everybody's missed everybody. The Summer Institute, we were already getting giddy, like, so it was pretty awesome. So yeah, going to the conference, the local affiliates in Texas, we have 10, the Texas Evaluation Network. A lot of localities, states or cities, Chicago, Atlanta have their own, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of local affiliates. Again, get involved with them, get on the board. Don't be passive. As a consultant, it's really important to be really active about making those building that network. And of course, we have our ICTIG chat, and I'll put in a shout out for Ann's office hours. If you're a new consultant and you feel like you want some extra consulting type mentoring, Ann has been very successful with community evaluation solutions, and she very willingly provides that free mentoring every, 2 Fridays a month or something like that. And different topics are discussed. Sometimes it's just a come with what you want to discuss kind of thing. But so there's lots of ways you can get support by becoming active. And that's the key word, be active in these things. Show up, engage.
For the local affiliates, we did not have one in San Antonio. So what I did is went to the AEA website and downloaded all of the members that were in kind of our Bear County area, this part of Texas. And then I reached out to them and just started contacting them one by one. And over time, there's about 45 people on the mailing list. We're not very active, but I know who to reach out to now locally if I need to. You know, like if a local RFP comes out, it's like, have you heard about this one? Are you bidding? Are you going to? Do you need a teammate? Or, you know, or same thing as we reach out to other people and get teammates that way. But
That
we
was a
started
good
the local,
idea.
we started the local affiliate just because there wasn't one here.
Yeah. We used to get together up here in the Dallas area, and then in the Fort Worth area, we used to do like happy hours. And you can do that. Start with the AEA website and then do a snowballing thing. Tell people, you know, if you know other evaluators, bring them, send me their contact information. So, because a lot of evaluators have not joined AEA or for some reason aren't publicly allowing their information on the thing. So get a few people and then use a snowballing kind of thing to just recruit in lots of other people. How do you make connections? Like, okay, so we know a lot of people and we talk with them. How do you make those connections to actually, because a lot of times there's work that's too big for us alone. I mean, so we want to subcontract other people or work with other people. How do you make those new connections to identify people that you could collaborate with? Kurt gave his idea about in San Antonio, but what other ways? I mean, how many of you have met somebody through this group and decided, I think I'll.
Yeah. Yep.
I reached out on the ICTIG message board and had some great conversations with people through that. Also through my mastermind groups, we've collaborated on putting some proposals together as well.
I have to do a shout out for that ICTIG chat. I now set it up so that I get the daily emails. So as soon as somebody posts, I get it. Just because it's so active. I'm on a couple of other mailing lists from some of the other TIGs. And I have to go back and check to make sure I've got it set that I'm getting the emails. Because there aren't any. They're just not coming out. I mean, it's crickets. But this group is really very active on that. And I really like the amount of conversations going on.
Yeah.
I would concur with that, Kurt. The most active, I'm really glad about that. And I think for me, I reached out to a number of you through LinkedIn and had informational interviews. So that's also been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I've had chats with a lot of you that have said, hey, can we talk and just get to know you a little better or something? And that's another thing is I'm always happy to chat with you. If you have a question or just want to chat and get to know me, and maybe the rest of you too, we can reach out through venues like LinkedIn and other venues like that too, to try and continue to build this network so that we have colleagues. What do we look for? Well, when I'm looking for potential collaborators, I'm looking for people that I've had a chance to chat with a bit, so I kind of gotten to know them. People who, to me, it's important that they'll show up and be responsive, and that mostly too, they have the skills I need for this particular project. And that's another reason, reach out, because a lot of you have reached out and all of a sudden a project's come up and I've been like, hey, this person could do this project. They have this skill that I need on this project. So look for things like that too. For people like us older people, we're always happy to be written into your proposals to strengthen them, even if you just want to give us a tiny role. You can use me that way. I'll be used, but you know, because I have experience and I've been around a while, and if you need that and you're newer, yeah, write me in for something small.
Susan, we're not old. We're just very experienced.
Yes, us very experienced people. We are not.
Yeah, now that you
service.
qualify for Medicare.
That's right. I got my card.
Aged like fine wine, Susan. Fine wine.
Yes. Yes. Gained wisdom over the years that I didn't have in my 20s for sure. But we won't go back there. Whew. All right. Who's used a business coach?
Does picking yours and Anne's brains count?
Yeah, we actually, Ann and I both have found a good business coach, and we actually pay her to provide, to help us. She's kind of like our conscience almost. In fact, I meet with her today, and it's like this week, it's like, oh, okay, I meet with Tracy this week, so I better get these things done. So she's like, she keeps us moving our businesses forward with new ideas and new ways to promote, become more of a business owner and less of a just worker bee in our businesses.
I wanted to share.
Oh, go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, so our local credit union that I'm a member of actually has like a small business development department. And so they offer free consulting for small business owners and marketing, lawyers and legal issues, like business plan, all that. So I recommend like checking your local banks or credit unions to see if that similar kind of program. Yesterday, I spent 2.5 hours with the lawyer, and she's also trained in social work. So we're joking that she's my business therapist. Because yeah, you might find someone like that who kind of has multiple skills who can help you with, both legal issues, but also like emotional and complex issues. So just recommend that to folks.
Kelly, you had your hand raised. You used a business coach. Can you talk about what that was like for you?
Yeah, so I'm in the state of Virginia, and the state small business administration provides business coaching and development and all sorts of other things for free. So I have definitely taken advantage of free services. It was also a good way to network, because sometimes it's a group there versus a one-on-one. And it's been pretty helpful to help me navigate both the state and federal contracting, as well as getting SWAM certified, but also marketing, as you said, and those kinds of things, and legal advice and that kind of stuff. So
I'll second the small business development centers. They're great for free advice. I just got an email this morning that the U.S. Patent and Technology Office is doing a free roadshow on patents, copyrights, trademarks, intellectual property, and how to protect it, free for small businesses. And it's like you have to pay lunch. And it's like a 2/3 of a day seminar or workshop, and it's put on by the U.S. Feds in the Patent Office. But that email, I never would have heard about it had it not been on the Small Business Development Center email list. So that's just one of those little extra business advice, ways of getting business advice.
yes,
Kurt, can you
similarly,
share
Kurt, I just got an email from the Virginia SBA, and they are having, so the Federal Small Business Administration is doing a similar thing, right? They're doing a seminar on how to get certified so you can do federal contracts free. So yeah.
Hey, that's all great. I need to do that. I was sitting here thinking, yeah, I need to sign up for that stuff, because yeah, free, always looking for free. Free is best. I don't know if that's my favorite price. So for the rest of you then, what kind of ideas or thoughts do you have about you know, this whole concept, how many of you struggle some days with like, just like feeling kind of out here alone? I did a lot in the beginning. We didn't even have Zoom back then really or anything. It was like phone calls still and stuff.
I definitely struggle. Some days, many days, I just want to have a boss tell me what to do.
I know that feeling too.
Maybe it's that I just quit my job, but I am not feeling that. I definitely don't want a boss telling me what to do. I feel like that thought partnership that you develop with colleagues and contemporaries is really great. But in terms of other thoughts, I just want to put out there that like you never know where something is going, like what's going to happen with a connection. I at the same time that I started the job that I just left, I got a job offer from another employer that is also like does nonprofit networking and things like that. They just found out that I quit my job and I'm doing consulting and called me to do some contract work for them. So like while I was on this call. So you never know where those connections and those job leads are going to come from. And so like it's both exhausting, but also kind of encouraging. Like you have to be on all the time with your business.
Amy, I'm glad you said that because I'm out here in Los Angeles and a lot of times they'll, you know, I was hearing people talk about small business administration, local, and out here they don't want to give you advice. The banks don't want to give you any advice. They're terrified to give any kind of legal or other advice, and they keep putting disclaimers on it. But I did take a design thinking class, I think 2 summers ago, from Greensboro, North Carolina, from their library online. So I'm saying I think that's another option for those of us in urban or metropolitan areas where they don't want to give anything away for free or not much to do that. And then I like what you said about just talking to people and getting to know people, because I'm seeing that in casual conversations, sometimes that's where an opportunity pops up.
Yeah. I'm looking at all your comments. Everybody's been chatting away and I couldn't see the comments while I had my slides open. Yes, you connect to masterminds by becoming an AEA member or a member of the ICTIG, which means AA membership, in order to access the listservs and everything, because you have to have an online account. Let me see. Nadine mentioned dinner with Ann Price. Yeah. She'll have dinner with you. I'll sign her up. Matt mentioned he likes people to review his evaluation. You guys are probably seeing all these that I missed. But yeah, I think one of the most difficult things can be that sense of isolation. And one thing I was going to mention too in support is it doesn't always have to be your evaluation peers that are supporting you. I have other people I know, every now and then I just arrange lunch with a friend. So don't be afraid to take breaks, although you want to structure your workday pretty much, because that's how you manage to feel like, you know, you have to treat this like a full-time job, of course. But also don't be afraid to schedule lunch with friends or find me time in the middle of the day or time to get out and be social. Just to sort of have those connections that you don't get. One of the dangers is sometimes I like being alone so much that I sort of start becoming isolated and I don't, and then someone will say, do you want to have lunch? And I'm like, oh, you're asking me to leave the house? Because there's like, I won't leave the house sometimes for a week. And that's not always a good thing, is it? But so yeah, those are some, oh, there we go. Somebody mentioned Tamara Hamai. And there's others. Someone mentioned yesterday that Stephanie Evergreen is starting another one of her coaching series sessions and had that out and asked about it. I don't know. I didn't participate in it, so I don't know anything about it and can't speak to it. But that's something to look up if you want to look for kind of some business. Yeah, I love Stephanie. She actually is so nice. Every time I've had an interaction with her, she's just been really nice. And she has really supported some newbies in getting their businesses started, and they've done well. So yeah. Community-centric fundraising Slack workspace. That's interesting. Amy, do you want to talk about that a little more?
Yeah, so I honestly don't even remember how I came across it, but because my work is with nonprofits and I do grant research and writing as well as other things, it's been a really warm workspace, or like community space to just bounce ideas off of people. They have an evaluation channel. They have an opportunities channel where I've actually found some RFPs that I've applied for. Fingers crossed, hopefully some that I'll get. They have a consulting channel. They have a channel just for consulting newbies, and they meet once a month on Zoom. So like it's been a really supportive space, whether you're a fundraiser or not. So if you work with nonprofits, I highly recommend it.
That's great.
Sorry, Amy, what was that organization that was that?
It's called CommunityCentric Fundraising. I posted an invite to the Slack workspace in the chat. So if you just click that link, you'll be able to join.
How many of you use Slack? Are any of you, does anybody use Slack? It's free. No, I work with I'm an affiliate of an organization called Global Insight, and they're on Slack all the time. So I have it open during the day. So if things come up on any of the channels, but that's another is looking for those kind of things. Oh, Slack Workspace is part of the AEA Comms Task Force.
Fingers crossed. I'm pulling for it because I think Slack is great.
It can be. I still am baffled by it a little bit sometimes. Like, oh, how do I do this again? But I'm learning to use it now because of this affiliation I have, and it has been. And I did an evaluation and worked with a team that used it, and for their team, and they said that it was great because they could start all these channels for informal conversations, ask each other questions all day and stuff, without having to email and all that. It was kind of an instant way for people to go, hey, has anybody ever done this or whatever, and to keep communications going, because they were spread across the country, the team was. So this was their way of sort of acting like they were in the same office. So that's something you can use it for as well. Yeah. Any other thoughts about this idea of needing support or not being totally independent? Ideas you've had that have sort of helped you to get through some of the days sometimes, or deal with some of the challenges. Because again, if you're home alone all day and things are coming up and there's nobody around, how do you deal with that?
Susan, I'm going to share that in my open entity for omnig.com, we have that weekly Our Story education meeting, and that's where we pick sometimes edgy topics, sometimes just general topics. Like yesterday, we talked about belongingness, and we do that every single Wednesday for the past 2+ years, 90 minutes, and it's a great conversation. And yesterday, one of the attendees was asking about belongingness in reference to scales that they were using in their research. So it's an awesome space. And it's just nice to see whoever shows up and how the conversation goes. And we've been learning a lot and stretching, it's a lot of perspective taking. So that's one of the ways too.
Mm-hmm. Having some kind of regular things going on with people so that you know that on these days I have these people to talk to. It has gotten better. I know Zoom makes us feel like we're kind of in the room with people now, instead of being just on a phone as anonymous voices and stuff. So that's been a big change that's kind of come about since I started as a consultant, because I started sort of pre-Zoom. And So that's been a good thing, I would say, is it has broken away. And then having these weekly chats where we can come or not, depending on what's going on. But we can keep getting together and faces become familiar. We can start talking to one another. We can send private messages. Yes, Zoom has made it easier to participate on boards for local affiliates, definitely. It's made it easier for just a lot of life. Oh, the Our Story education. There's Vernita's OmniG chat, if anybody's interested in checking that out. That's the other thing, is that being part of groups helps us to share resources like this. Because without some kind of interaction, we wouldn't learn about resources. We wouldn't learn about training opportunities. Training opportunities are super important too. And learning about these networks, like, I don't know, Ann and I, through our networks, met with Kamala Savillingame, and then through her, we learned about technology of participation, and we got training in that. And now we're going to get more training in December. So just through these little interactions, we're also learning about really cool tools we can use. So it's not only a matter of reducing isolation, it's a matter of constantly being aware of the different opportunities we have to continue to keep advancing our skills and learning new techniques and ways to work. Oh, you and Kamala got trained together. Claire, that's kind of cool. It is about continuous learning, Vernita. I'm telling you, it's always about continuous learning. And as I said, today is my Medicare start date, but I'm signed up to continue learning, because no matter how long I've been in business, if I was still writing reports and doing things the way I did them when I started as a consultant, I'd be done. No, everything's changed over the years. I mean, everything continues to evolve and change. And if you don't keep up with it, you're not going to be relevant anymore. You're not going to be able, but mostly, don't we all want to give our clients the best we have? And the best way to do that is to continue to grow, learn, and develop. So,
And Susan, can I also throw in the future of work? Because what does the future of independent consulting look like, since the jobs of the future are changing and the gig economy and all of that? So I think that continuous learning and networking helps with that as well.
I'm kind of thinking of quiet quitting right now myself. What about anybody else?
I didn't even know what quiet quitting was until this last week. That's how old I am. Gen Xer over here.
It's brand new,
We call
Matt.
it slacking off.
Yeah, that's what we call it. But actually, the workplace has changed so dramatically with the expectations of people working more. I mean, it's like they keep cutting jobs, but not refilling them. And so people are expected to cover those jobs that are gone, and it's gotten out of hand. So I can understand the quiet quitting. I think that goes along with I understand unionization is back on the uptick. And that's because of these kinds of expectations. Minimum wage hasn't been raised. Wages haven't kept up with cost of living, stuff like that. So I guess I can understand being a child of the 70s, we were kind of radical like that. So for us, all of this is like, yeah, that's what, that's going back to our day. It's like it's all coming back around. And then going way back to the days when my grandfather was one of the sit-down strikers in Flint, Michigan at the formation of the UAW. I'm just very proud of that in my family history. Employers refuse to support their employees. Doing your job is enough. If they want more, they should give more. Yep. Independent consultants can do gig work in the slow times and subcontracting. That's the thing. I think most of us, instead of quiet quitting, we just quit. It's like, quiet about it. I'll just have my own company, thank you. And quit loudly, yes. And mine was in reaction to unrealistic expectations, bullying in the workplace. And partly because in a job, and here's what I like best about consulting, everybody let me know what you think, is that I'm not limited to what this job description is. I make my own job description. And when I get bored doing this, I can just say, now I'm going to start doing this now, and I want to do less of that. When you work for an employer, you can't do that. And this is, for those of you new, that's something to keep in mind, is that your business, you're going to start doing this one thing, but your business is going to evolve. Your skills are going to evolve. You don't even know what your business is going to look like in 5 years, but get excited over that. Don't like, oh, it's really exciting to think about that you don't have boundaries anymore on what you can do and be. That should make everybody smile. Anyways, we're coming up to the top of the hour. Anybody want some final comments here?
Yeah, thanks, Susan, for this. And, when you were mentioning, sometimes the comparative isolation compared to having worked in an organizational or institutional setting, for the most part, like you, I really enjoy having, the private focus time. And I am thankful for Zoom and other platforms that allow us to interact like this. What I find is one of the biggest challenges, though, is that, I'm missing that more of that in-person time. I feel fortunate to have a wonderful wealth of colleagues and networks with whom I, connect regularly. And maybe this is a sign of my, not age, but years of experience, that I just, I feel like I get Zoom fried. I
do
on Zoom. And so what I'm doing now is, when I left the university and given, networks of colleagues from many years, I've said, I definitely want to stay in touch. And so instead of doing that all by Zoom, I am now actively recruiting a bunch of walking partners. I'm lucky in that regard that I, live on a rural dirt road, dead end road in Vermont. So setting helps in that regard. But I am finding, so I'm building more and more. I'm finding out which one of those more local colleagues likes to walk or would be game to walk. And we can pair that with, coffee on my screen porch, a glass of wine if it's later in the day, and that's the right match. Because I find a lot of us are so busy, and many of us are feeling like we are sitting in chairs and looking at screens for too many hours. So if we can at least do a gentle stroll together, that is a value added that sometimes helps us shoehorn it into an already overloaded and screen loaded schedule.
That people time face to face. I don't do it often enough. So I would go walking with you too. That would be great. Walking meetings. We used to do that when I worked somewhere. Walking Zoom meetings. I hadn't thought of that just because, I don't know. I rarely leave my office. My staff require a lot of supervision. They're right now in there. And if I go out to WALK, can't even say the word, they will insist on going along. And it's too hot here too. All right, everybody, we've made it through this hour. Thank you for showing up.